You are listening to Confessions of a Counselor podcast with Janice, mental health in bite-sized chunks. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Confessions of a Counselor. I'm your host, Janice, and in today's episode, I thought we would talk about self-care and behavior change. So self-care is something we've been talking about for the last season, and I've been talking a lot about behavior change in session as of late. So I thought, why don't we tie those two things together and make a podcast? So behavior change is really important and something that a lot of people come to therapy for. How do I change doing X? How do I start this new habit? Right? It's something that we talk about in therapy a lot, and I think it's really important. So let's jump right in. So, in terms of molding these things together, bringing these two concepts together, this idea of self-care. So how do I take care of myself? How do I prioritize myself? What is it that I need to be doing in everyday life and in these unique situations in order to care for myself? Again, kind of asking ourselves the question, how would I care for a child? And kind of doing that for ourselves, being the parent to ourselves. So when it comes to behavior change, this is often a long process, right? So this is something that I want to change about myself or about the behavior or something that I'm doing in my life. And so I think it can often feel at times defeating to change our behavior or to do something different. And so I think the practice of self-care while we're trying to change our behavior is really important. As we've talked about in the past, when it comes to behavior change, I really like to talk about the walk back process. So we're going to walk it back, right? We're going to practice our skills in whatever moment that I remember the skill to use. And eventually the hope is that the more that I practice that, the more that I get good at doing this skill, even if I'm not using it in the moment that I need the skill, the more that I practice the skill, the closer it's going to get to me using it in the moment that I need it. So, for instance, if I'm trying to change the behavior of anxiety, right? So I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, and I'm going to start to use the skill of the pause button. Then I'm going to use the pause button outside of moments of anxiety. So I'm going to get my feet on the ground. I'm going to take my 3 deep breaths, and I'm going to bring myself back into my window. I'm going to practice that outside of the moments of anxiety so that eventually over time it'll become easier to access that skill in the moment of anxiety. So the same as um, we do this with other things that we're changing about ourselves. Even in this moment, if that was the behavior that we were trying to change, um, then it's really important that we practice self care around this, right? So self compassion, um, accountability. We really want to make sure that we're caring for ourselves while we're walking through this behavior of changing, because it can feel really defeating at times. So we're going to change our behavior, yes, but that doesn't mean that it's going to come easy. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to fail at it sometimes. In fact, it's almost guaranteed that there's going to be times where, in our example from previously, that I don't remember to use my pause button in the moment of anxiety, or that perhaps I try a skill. Perhaps I try to splash cold water on my face when I'm feeling anxious, but it doesn't work. And so then we might have a tendency to want to give up in that moment. And this is, I think, where self care is really important, right? So in those moments where we're feeling defeated, or in those moments where we feel like we failed, or in those moments where I just want to give up and stop trying to do something different and just go back to the thing that feels really comfortable, we can use self-care here in order to care for ourselves, right? To create that container of safety and use our skills in order to help ourselves feel better. And maybe we don't try again that day, but we try again the next day. So, in terms of self care and behavior change, um, these are two ideas that we're going to marry together. So we're going to know all of the things that we can do to care for ourselves, and we're going to practice the skill of behavior change. But we want to make sure that we're doing those two things simultaneously, so that we don't burn out, so that we don't give up on the behavior change that we want to. So, as always with um, self-care, and we want to have that self-compassion and remember that we're human. We're not perfect, and that's okay. Right? That's a part of the human experience, is to struggle and to sometimes feel like we're failing, and we all feel that way sometimes. Okay, so I hope that you found this helpful. Until next time, take care.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Confessions of a Counselor podcast is available anywhere you like to listen to your podcasts, both on Apple and Android. New episodes are released every Friday. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to join the conversation, leave a review, or subscribe to the podcast hosted on Spotify. You can find all these details on JaniceLyons.com. Until next time, take care.